Welcome to the Healing Courageously podcast, where we engage in open, honest, and healthy conversation about everything from addiction, abuse, and recovery to marriage, family, and spirituality. We hope you find this podcast helpful. Our goal is that you will find a new way of living as you look closer at yourself in these areas of your life, which will lead to a happier and healthier you. Now here's your host, Randy Boyd.
Well, greetings and welcome to this episode of Healing Courageously. And today we have Melissa Cavanaugh back with us, and we're going to talk about her book, Please Write Back. And it's a very short book, short read, but yet very, very, very impactful. So I thought I'd have her back and we just talk about your book, Melissa, and find out why you wrote it, what inspired you to write, all sorts of different things. But I want to hear from you mostly, and so I welcome back. I appreciate you coming back.
Yes, I'm so grateful to be back and talk with you and share with you. And I know last time we talked a lot about my career and my practice and what I do. So it's nice to be able to talk about what I wrote last year and why I wrote it. So I'm happy to be here and happy to answer any sort of questions.
Great. So why don't we start off with, this is one of the things that I was asked a lot. What inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for anyone that doesn't know, if they didn't listen to the last podcast, I'll kind of give a rundown. The name of the book is Please Write Back, and then the extended title is Please Write Back, and it's the emotional journey of loving and losing a mother to addiction. And so with that, myself and my brothers were raised by my grandparents, and my mom really struggled with her alcohol and drug addiction from the age of 12 on. And so since we were born and we were raised, she struggled, and she was kind of in and out and going to rehab and different things throughout our lives. And so that's the story. The story is Please Write Back. And it's about me kind of, not all the letters are actually true, not exact things that I've written her, but some of our correspondence growing up was through letters. Like when she was in rehab or when she was incarcerated, that's how we would communicate. And I still have some of the letters and cards that she sent me over the years. And so that's kind of the inspiration of why I wrote it. And then there's actually a more specific story of how I got the name, and I'd like to share that if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I see a lot of little biddies and younger children to teenagers in my practice. And I had this one younger child, I think she was about 11, and she would come in maybe like once a month. So I wouldn't see her that often, but enough to where we would need to catch up and check in. So my idea was, why don't you come up with a list of questions or come up with a list of things that you want to talk about in session, because with a month's time, sometimes that can get overwhelming to fit in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. So she would write a list of questions that she had for me, or a list of things that she would want me to answer or talk about. And at the end, she would sign, Please Write Back. And I was like, wow, what a great way to meld both my touching feelings about letter writing and card writing to my practice, which a lot of my kids kind of come in and journal and do things like that. So it was kind of the mix of Please Write Back. And that was kind of what I wanted. So often in my life growing up with my mom, I wanted her to, write back to me. I wanted to hear from her. I had questions for her that I sometimes didn't get answered. So that was kind of the inspiration behind the name, and then why I went ahead and did it.
Yeah, that's really powerful, because I don't think a lot of people understand how much kids struggle with parents that are in addiction.
Yeah.
And we were lucky out here. We had Jerry Moe over at the Betty Ford Center that did the kids program over there. And
Yeah.
it's quite heartbreaking when you listen and these kids finally start opening up to us. And so that, please write back, mom, or please write back, dad, whoever. Please write back. I want to hear from you. I want to know you. I want to understand you. It's quite heartbreaking. I think hopefully with the work you're doing, that's going to open a lot of doors for a lot of kids that have some very needed emotional healing in their lives. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it is needed. And I think that a lot of times, just like at the Betty Ford Center, they had like the children's program. There's a local treatment facility here in my town, Lafayette. It's Victory, and they do. And then there's a couple of other ones, but we kind of work closely with Victory here. Um, and they do the family programs, and a lot of it is included is letter writing. And so I've helped children write those letters to their parents that are maybe in treatment, to be able to tell them, how they feel and what boundaries they want to set and what expectations they have moving forward for their parent. And so letter writing is it can be such a amazing tool to get some of those things across that kids sometimes have a hard time expressing verbally or like face to face.
Right. Yeah, I can remember when I was in treatment at Betty Ford, outpatient, but we had that family night. And my daughter, I think she was 16, 17, somewhere around there. And I can remember when I had to sit knee to knee with her. And what I saw is I saw this broken 12-year-old girl. It was devastating, But
Yeah.
thank God that relationship has been. And watching be some people doing some work here, so she's here right now helping me out in the house, and we have a great relationship now. But it's
Oh, that's
because,
awesome.
yeah, but it's all because of her being allowed, and all my kids can do that. Dad, this really upset me, and not
Mhm.
denying it, but saying, yeah, I understand. So
Oh yeah.
what you're doing is that's tremendous amount of work, tremendous amount of good work,
Thank you.
you know.
Thank you.
So when did you start writing your book? And let me preface by saying this: people used to ask me that all the time, and I say
Yeah.
40 years ago. This book has been in the process for 40 years. Okay, um, but reality, I started in 2014. But anyways, when did you start writing your book?
Yeah. So, okay, so let me think. So we're in 2022 now.
Mm-hmm.
I published in April of 2021.
Okay.
Um, I got the idea, let's like rewind back to the end of 2019. So it was before COVID,
Okay.
actually. And so we used to do, which we've started back up since, but we used to do this Friday afternoon consultation group with clinicians in the area. So in the practice that I'm at with Jessica Gibson Kendrick and Rebecca Doziero, we we started this consultation group back a couple years ago, and one of those groups we started talking about what our plans were for 2020 and what was something that we wanted to do. And one of my plans was, and what I told the group is, I want to write my story down. I don't know how I want to do it, but I've come up with the title.
That's a
And
start.
I told them the story of like the little girl coming in, and she would write me these notes and like what I've just told y'all. And I'm like, I know that I want it to be, please write back. And I didn't really know what I wanted to exactly say, but I knew I wanted to do that. So fast forward, that was at the end of 2019. Fast forward into 2020. It was actually, I had started like teetering in the ideas, and it was actually a day that, I think it was in September of 2020, a day that we had gotten sent home, I think because a hurricane was coming. I can't remember which one. And so I had canceled all my evening sessions, and I got home and I just sat on my couch and I wrote out the different solid memories that I had in my life with my mom. And that's how I started. And it started off with each ending saying, please write back, every single ending of every letter. And then I sat on that for a little bit, and then I went back and I was like, wait, but sometimes I didn't want my mom to write back. I was angry at her, or I didn't care if she wrote back, or whatever the emotion was that I was going through at that time. I just didn't want to, and I was like, well, I can't say please write back every time. So that's where I went in, and then I changed each ending of the letter to express a different emotion, and so that's where the endings of each page kind of came into play. And so I had finished that, and I sent it off to one of my best friends, her dad, to read. He was super close to me, and he read it and edited it. A couple of my friends came over that night, and I was like, I wrote a story, and they were like, no way. And I was like, you want me to read it to you? And I read it to them, and they all cried. And that was a super special moment. It was the first time I've read the story, and I sent it off to an illustrator to get a quote. And so that was in December of 2020 that I sent it off, and then she got back to me in January, and so it was from there pretty quick, and then it got finished. I met with her a number of times, the illustrator, and we got everything solidified, and then it was published in April.
That's awesome.
Of 2021.
Yeah, that happened quick. Really
It did,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah. That's good though. That's good.
I think it was helpful because it's such a short story,
yeah.
and I needed, and it was like my story, and it's very, I mean, like you said, it's very short, so it takes only a couple of minutes to read. And it helped that I just needed illustrations, and my illustrator was wonderful, Lauren Brasso, and she sat with me, and I told her about each moment, each like letter, and even down to there's a page in there that talks about seeing my mom drive away, and she was like, do you remember the color of the car, or do you remember the color of the car that you were in? And I was like, I do actually. And so she made sure that that was the color of the car in the picture, and so it was really personal and
Wow.
really amazing. Yeah.
It's your story, but yeah, it's everybody's story.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
beauty about it, and it's you could read it and not know that it was your story. You could read it like my wife did and go, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
heartbreaking, and it could be, like I say, it could be anybody's story, and it is a lot of people's story. And I know myself when I wrote my book, what people relate to is that first person type story where they can really relate to it. It's not some
Absolutely.
fantasy. Yeah, I think that's what people need to know is that, wow, I'm not the only one that's gone through this. Somebody else
Yeah.
has gone through it. Somebody else has made it. And with help, with possibly their help or somebody's help, I can get through it also.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it is, and that's what I tell not only my clients that come in my office, but people that I see and families and friends. It's like addiction or some sort of struggle like this, whether it's addiction or not, touches every family. I mean, once you
oh yeah,
start digging, you're gonna find it.
yeah,
You're going to, and so um, it it's about, and I think I said this last time, like, breaking this stigma that we can't talk about the hard stuff, and
yeah.
we can't talk about all the feelings that come along with struggle, right? Because it's not all going to be happiness and recovery, right? Like it's going to be the sadness and the anger and all of the things that come with it. So that
And
was a big piece of this.
and I think that's the important part when we're going on a recovery journey is that we do have to talk about the dark side, and it's hard for people to do that. But it's only we're only talking about it to help us understand why we were that way, where we came from, and then it
Yeah.
comes a point where it's like for myself, I've realized I go, yeah, it was a pretty tough childhood, but then I grew up in Dana Point, I grew up on the beach, I grew up surfing every day. I mean, I had a lot of good that happened in my life, but the darkness overshadows it. And I tell everybody that we have to love that darkness as much as we love the light. Because if we don't,
Yeah.
the darkness is going to constantly, shadow us. It's going to constantly be there. So, and it's a reality that's part of our lives. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It
Have,
really is.
you know? And it's real hard for the young kids too, because they're relying so much on mom and dad for food, shelter, all that. And so, I mean, I'm not telling you nothing you don't know, but they're afraid to lose that. So it's just writing like this and working with kids. I'm so happy you're doing this, Melissa. You have no idea how happy I am that you are working with kids like this, because I see it all the time. I see broken kids here all the time. So
Yeah. It's something it's something that I'm super passionate about, and wherever I end up in life, whatever I end up doing. I love my career and love what I do, um, and I think that if we can create those bridges with young children early, it's teaching them that it's okay to talk about it, and even I have kids that come in all the time, and I read my story to them often. They'll find it and be like, "What's this?" And so we end up reading it in session. But I have kids that have lost parents to, whether it be addiction or just some other form of loss, that come in and say, "I don't want to talk about it."
mm-hmm.
And I say, "Okay, we don't have to talk about
Yeah.
it." But it ends up coming out, right? Like, they want to test you and they want to push you and they want to say, "I don't want to talk about it because I know that I'm supposed to be here to talk about it." And so one of the ways I just answer and I say, "Okay, we don't have to talk about anything you don't want to." And then it's like, as soon as you meet them with, "Okay, we don't have to. Like, this is your time and you are the expert of
Mm-hmm.
yourself." They're like, "Oh, okay, well, actually, really, I do need to talk about it. I just don't want to be forced to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel in charge." And so that's another piece of this. And another thing that I kind of use with this story is it took me time to be able to tell my story. I mean, I think when I started it, I was 25.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's published at 27, and but that was 25 years, and my mom passed away when I was 18, and so it took me a long time
Mm-hmm.
to be able to publish it. And then there were some members of my family that couldn't read it right away. They weren't ready, and
Right.
it took them 6, 7, 8 months to be able to read the story, um, and be able to talk about it, even though it's something that we all experienced in different ways. And so it's about, like, in so many ways, like, this piece of meeting people where they're at and allowing them to tell and speak of their story on their own terms.
That's so important that, especially with the kids, but even with adults. It's like my wife and I, we meet people where they're at. And
Hmm.
that's it. I mean, we're not going to force you to talk about what you don't want to talk about. If you don't want to talk about it, we won't talk about it. But like you say, eventually it all comes out, but
Yeah.
it's in their time. And you talked about with your family not want reading the book. I'm thinking about my wife. She never once read one of my transcripts. She edited all my college papers and everything I write. She has, but she wouldn't look at my book. I remember the day we got the first shipment in. She grabbed one, and I went in that evening to our bedroom. She's under the covers with the light of her phone. I think she was in chapter 4 already, sobbing, reading my book, and she was random and falling in love with you all over again. You know,
Oh.
and so she read it, and it was perfect that she read it then, because she can help. She's the one that really helped me understand that the book was for not only men, but it was for the family members of abuse survivors as well. You know, so
Absolutely.
yeah, people, they have a hard time reading, especially when it personally affects them.
Hmm.
Which is okay. That's fine. Like you say, at their time they're going to read it. you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something I get a lot is, someone will reach out to me saying they bought it or they came across it, and just like how much it meant to
Yeah.
them, or just I've had an outpouring of love and support
Yeah.
since publishing. I'm sure you've experienced a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the same thing, and really, like, I think the best, we'll call it a compliment. I'm not really sure, but just people being real, of saying, like, I just feel less alone.
Mm-hmm.
um and that's why I think that's why we tell our stories, and why we spread this message of hope and recovery and survival, to show people that they aren't alone. And while our stories may be different, and while no one can ever experience the exact same thing that you have experienced, we can come together in saying that I have once struggled, or I am struggling now, and my hope is to keep moving forward, because I've seen, you or someone else be able to make something beautiful out of something really, really tragic and ugly. And so I think that that's such a cool thing about being able to be a fellow, like, publisher or self-publisher, however you get your story out there, whether even if it's just a blog post. I mean,
Right.
like, they're all so helpful and equivalent, and do so much good.
Yeah, it is a compliment. It's an inspirational compliment that people really, really they need to see that, like you said, I'm not alone, because so many people feel so all alone in their emotional cave that they're living in, and they don't see a way out of it. So it's, books like yours and books like mine where they can go, I'm not alone, right?
Yeah.
And so it inspires people to, okay, what do I got to do to change? What do I got to do to get help? If
Yeah.
Melissa can do it, if Randy can do it, then I can do it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and that's what people need to see. They're not being told what to do. They're given a living example of how we can change. I
Yeah.
guess is the best way to explain it.
I think that's a really great way to explain it.
Yeah. So, what is the most important part about writing to you? So, if you look at your book or whatever, what's the most important about writing to you?
That's a good question. And I think a lot of people, I think right now, a lot of people are asking me, Melissa, when are you going to write another one? And I've gotten that question a lot, and I want to. What I've answered with is, I'm not sure what I want to say yet. And I have ideas, and I have, different things that I've thought about, but it hasn't hit me on what I want to say. And that, I think, is my answer to that question, right? Like, what's the most important thing about writing? And I think it's about really saying what you want to say and getting that message across. And I knew with this book, I mean, it took me all of probably, I guess, if I 30 minutes, I think, to get it down on paper. And then, editing took some time, and getting things the exact way I wanted, and punctuation and things like that. That took a little bit extra, but really getting the words out didn't take very long, because I knew what I wanted to say. And so, that I think that's my answer to that one. Just
That's good. No, I mean, it
saying
is
it.
getting the right words out because we're nonfiction writers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to. People can tell when we're talking from an academic standpoint or when we're talking from
Mm-hmm.
the heart. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference. I mean, I know a lot of the reviews I got on my book is exactly that. You speak from first person, and your story is real,
Yeah.
and the way you explain how you got help and it worked. And so that it is true. It's like, I think writers like you and I, we need to really know what we're going to write about and understand it in a way that other people will benefit from it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you're writing this, right? This might have already been answered, but I'm going to answer it anyways because you got your book done fairly quickly.
Yeah.
When an emotionally draining or sad situation would come up, how did you get in the right frame of mind to work through that?
In regards to writing,
Yeah,
the book, like, how
yeah,
did?
yeah. Like something came up emotionally for you. For if I can, for instance, my book, there was a lot of emotional pieces in it, and it was really hard sometimes because I heard my mom's voice saying, "Who do you think you are? Nobody's going to listen to you." So I had to work through a lot of really tough situations.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you had any of those, but if you did, how did you work through those?
Yeah. So, actually, I mean, and I've never actually told anyone this. So the day that, I mean, and I say that it was very short,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of time that I wrote, and it was. I mean, I remember sitting on my couch. I was the only one home, and I just wrote out on note cards. Is how I did, and I still have the note cards, actually. Um, but I sat there and I sobbed. And what's interesting is every time I read the book, and it happened just this past week, I read it to a young girl who has a very similar story to mine. I started to tear up, and she was like, I feel I feel tears welling in my eyes and I don't want to cry. And I was like, every time I read this story, tears well up in my eyes and I want to cry too. And then as I'm talking, it happens, right? And and she said, I can see that, Miss Melissa. And I said, yeah, it happens every time. And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, because when we talk about our stories and when we remember these emotions, it comes up and it's very real and it's very raw. And that's what happened to me whenever I sat down and I wrote it. And then when I read it to my friends that night, uh, I cried and they cried. We were all crying because it was very real. And so it's that emotional recall that I think that I'm hearing you talk about, of hearing these things and replaying them. Me replaying my mom being passed out because she had relapsed and I didn't know it. Seeing her drive away, getting the news that she had passed and then having to deal with that aftermath, right? All of these things, like it replayed in my mind whenever I'm writing these things on paper. And so I think it came up. And to answer your question, how did I get through it? I think that I just remembered why I was doing what I was doing. And what was my purpose in going back to, like, what do I want to say and what is my message here? And I think that that's how I get through those moments, even in session, whenever the emotions kind of come up. Why am I doing this and why am I sharing my story? And I remember that, and I think that that kind of helps me, cross that bridge of, okay, now I've caught my breath again.
Yeah. No, that's real important when you think about, why am I doing this? I'm doing it not for myself. I'm doing it to help other people.
Yeah.
It's going to help. And I had a gentleman, when I rode my bike across America, he lived in Pennsylvania, upstate, and he met me, and I didn't even know he was really following me. But what he told me was, he had my book. He says, you have no idea how many people your book has helped. And I don't. And the same with you. We'll never know. All we're doing, all our books are, in my opinion, they're just seeds for people. And we're planting the seeds, and then other people might be watering them, and other people might get to see the fruit that that the trees are bearing. But it's because of our seed and our love for people and our love to help people that people are growing.
Yes. I mean, I think that it makes me so excited to see, and even, or to think about it, because sometimes you're right, we don't see the flower or any of the things that have happened from it, but occasionally we might get that feedback of how someone's been touched by the story, and that's just like icing on top of the cake. But to know of everything else, every time else that a story affects or our story can affect someone and help them through it, and we don't know that, like, sends shivers down my body. It's really a neat feeling.
Yeah, it really is. I think for me, that's what keeps me going a lot of times.
Oh, 100%.
Especially with the population that I work with and the abuse and all that. People are just like, but even if it's like they say, even if it's just one person, then that's all that really matters.
Right. Right. It really is. Yeah. It is all that matters.
No, exactly. It's just that one person. Because that one person, it's like a pebble effect. That one person's gonna go, and he affects another person, and then in turn affects another person. So that's how it works. It's all with a pebble effect.
Yes, absolutely.
So what is the most surprising thing you discovered while writing your book? Whether it's about yourself or whatever.
I think probably the amount of hope that has come from it. So not only for myself, but from the feedback that I've gotten from other people, and kind of like you're saying, like the pebble effect. And because I think I've said this, slightly before, and I can't remember if I said it last time, like my story, while it ends, quite beautifully, the last 2 pages for me haven't happened yet. And so that's something that I've, whenever I was writing it, I'm hopeful that that they will happen one day. And I'm hopeful that my story can kind of end in that way. But I'm also, open to the fact that it may look very, very different. And so I think that, because people ask me like, well, who are you married to and what's your little girl's name? And I'm like, well, actually, that's just like part of my wishful thinking that I hope comes true. And I kind of use that in reference to, sometimes our stories aren't finished and we get to be, a helping hand in the creation of what's to come. Right.
Absolutely,
And even though, yeah, like, so even though hard times happen and things may change along the way, it doesn't mean that our story has to like crash and burn, right? It just means that it takes another step. And so just as if I've wishfully created some sort of happy ending, I know that may look different. And just telling other people, like, be hopeful, use this growth opportunity to create the next step of your story, and know that there's going to be another page.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think your story will end the way you want it to end.
I hope so.
I hope so. I think you're a good person. You got good intentions, and I don't know where you are with God, but God rewards people with those kind of intentions. So I think your dream will come true someday.
I believe so.
Yeah.
One way or another.
So, a couple more. What do you hope your readers will take away from the book?
Man, that's a good one. That's a good question. I hope that they take away that the roller coaster that is the emotions of life, just as my story kind of shows, whether it be anger or sadness or frustration or disgust or whatever the things that kind of come up, knowing that they're okay, right? Like our emotions and how we feel are all very, very normal and very valid. It's how we then respond to them and how we act that really make a difference, because that was something that after my mom's death, I struggled with shutting her out for some time, and I struggled with being angry at her, and I blamed myself in a lot of ways of like, well, if I would have just, answered her phone call that last time, or if I would have just been kinder to her and gone and visited more when she was in rehab or when she was, living in the city over, that she would have lived longer or whatever, right? I went through that blaming stage for a number of years, and sometimes it still kind of pops up and resurfaces. And so if anyone is reading this story and struggling with not being able to forgive right now, I guess I just want them to know that that's okay. It's a part of the journey, and it's a part of this growth experience that we have dealing with some of these hard things, and you'll get there, as long as you're doing the hard work and searching for it. It's just, it may not be there right now, and that's okay. So just give yourself some grace, and keep fighting and keep, taking those steps forward, and then eventually, some peace and serenity may kind of start to seep in.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, forgiveness is a huge part of our journeys, and
Yeah.
It, like you said it perfectly. If you can't right now, that's okay. Just work on it. It'll come. It'll come. As long as you keep working forward on it. So.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the last question, which I know you love me to ask, is there a question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked?
I know, yeah, you asked me that the last one. And I think I got stumped on that one too. Gosh, there a question that I've asked that you haven't asked? I can't think. I think you really were all encompassing in this one. This was great.
Good. Well, that's good. I'm glad. Thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it very much. So,
Yeah, of course.
so where can people? Oh, before I go there, what about your coloring book? Is that?
Yes, it is out. We just it was a local. We just locally printed it. And so my hope is, and I think I said this last time, but then the holidays all happened, and it was crazy. So we did locally print it. It's created. So if anyone does want the coloring book, feel free to email me at melissa@cownrec.com, and I would happily send you the PDF. We don't have them printed to be able to ship. I have a couple that I could absolutely ship, but I think it might be easier to just have the PDF, and someone could print them and use them in their offices or with their children. I'd be happy to do that. So it's Melissa, Melissa @cownrec.com. So it's COUNREC.com.
I want to
That's
put
my
that
email.
up. I want to put that up on the screen here, Melissa. Just one.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
I should have had it ready. And
no, that's okay. I should have told you. So it was my, I'm just happy you asked that question.
Melissa at
COUNREC.com. So COUNREC.com. That's it.
You go. So you can get her coloring book here. Okay, now this.
I'd be happy to email it.
Yeah, she'll be glad to give you an email it to you, so you have it. It's a workbook or a coloring book that goes with your book, correct?
Yeah. So the name of the coloring book is Please Color with Me. So it's not a direct correlation to the book, but it's a lot of the techniques and a lot of the prompts that I use in my therapeutic sessions all the time, with some coloring pieces to it. And so it was something that we wanted to create. I do have a plan eventually to.
I lost you. I lost your voice. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. No. No. Okay, so just stay there. Her book is available. You can hear me, correct? We lost the audio with Melissa for some reason. Your book is available on Amazon, correct? Please write back. So you can get her book at Amazon.com. Okay, you go there to get her book. It's like I say, it's a very powerful and very short read. And then if you want the coloring book, you can contact her at melissa@cownrec.com. I got it up here on the screen. I should be glad to send you the PDF of the coloring book as well. I'm sorry we lost Melissa's sound. I'm not sure what's going on, but she's still on the screen. She's there. I don't want her to leave. Okay, we're going to make sure she gets all the everything out there. So is there anything else? Did I cover everything that I need to put up on the screen? Okay. All right. So don't go nowhere, Melissa. We're going to communicate somehow here in a minute. So again, I want to thank Melissa for joining me for a second time talking about her book. I always love talking about people who, talking to other authors, because it gives us great ideas and we can see how we relate to each other and the struggles that we all go through in writing a book. It's not as easy as people think it is. So I appreciate you coming on today, Melissa. You can get my book also, Healing the Wounded Child Within. It is on Amazon as well, and paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. And I got my 30-day devotional to wholeness, which is on Amazon as well. That's Kindle and paperback. And then the 7-day challenge, which goes with my book, Healing the Wounded Child Within. Little 7-day workbook, real simple things you can do to just start getting yourself more focused on the good parts of your life. That's also available on Amazon. So, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Melissa, don't go nowhere, okay? We'll talk to you all on the next episode. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
This has been Healing Courageously with Randy Boyd. We will have a new episode every Monday. Please like us on iTunes or Google Play. If you would like to know more about the services available from Randy, please visit him at changeyourlifestorynow.com. Thank you for spending time with us. We'll see you next week. And remember, if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does.